Presenting to you Unlocking Growth with Personalization, Driving Efficiency through CreativeOps. Over to you, folks.
Thank you. Thank you to all for joining this session. A big thanks to our partners WebEngage for organizing this session. I know personalization has been talked about a fair bit today. We will take a slightly different tack to this. Our friend Arindam here has a broad array of experience in this space. Part of it will cover analytics, part of it will cover creative, which might not have been an area that is touched upon today. So we thought it will be interesting for the audience. So before we start, I just wanted to share why we wanted Arindam and the team that he represents to come and join. One thing that all of us know is obviously Airtel is a massive organization, but how massive it's sort of the tip of the iceberg is something that I just wanted to touch upon, just to give you the magnitude of the challenges that Arindam has to solve. So as a number of subscribers, you heard some numbers thrown, and all of the folks who had come before were large businesses, but Arindam and team have more than 400 million subscribers globally, making Airtel the third largest telecom company in the world. Now, that's something to be proud of as an Indian company, and proud of to be a fellow panelist with Arindam for that reason. Also, unlike most businesses, Airtel is not a business that operates at one level of the stack. They literally have to lay pipes in the ground for cables to flow and give us the data that we have. They have antenna, physical retail store operations, they have e-commerce, they have the highest level of the stack, which are slick apps where you can do e-commerce, where you can listen to music and so many other things, right? So Airtel as a business has so many diverse things. So first, I wanted to start by saying one, thank you for joining and sharing your insights. And Arindam wanted to start by first you giving a sense to the audience what sort of teams are reporting to you, or what sort of charter you are looking at, and mainly what are your priorities. That will just sort of make it a little more grounded. Over to you.
So Airtel has been one of the largest telcos in terms of user base for a long time. However, with data and technology becoming very, very critical, I think around 4 years back, we tried creating a new team inside Airtel called Growth Team. The purpose of the Growth Team is basically drive rapid digitization across systems and processes, starting from marketing, communication to customer fulfillment, as well as developing apps and website which can serve millions of people without giving them any trouble, creating a direct connection between Airtel and its customers. So that was the genesis of the Growth Team. Since then, we have actually done a lot of things which we are proud of. Now we have at least 2 apps which has more than, combined they have a monthly active user base of more than 150 million users. We also have content play going with one of our apps. Every month, around 20 million people visits our website. Now, almost 40% of our revenue in terms of recharges, bill payments, comes through digital. And if I consider our non-prepaid business, it is even higher. We have a very, very large customer base. So we have around 230 million people who are using only 4G prepaid. And if I add to other services users like broadband and postpaid, we have around 250 to 260 million customers only in India. Then there are 150 million customers in Africa. So the Growth Team purpose from the start itself is to some extent, to quote the Facebook famous line, is that break things and do things happen. So from the start, we created a mentality where people are comfortable on experimenting things. So we deployed some kind of a very simple system that everybody talk about, but very difficult to deploy, is test, scale, and then use that learning to accelerate whatever you are doing. So as on today, we have a 30-member growth team who manages starting from customer acquisition to app customer acquisition for our apps, driving retention, usage, for all of our users, starting from app user, non-app users, everybody. And everything is done at a very, very large scale. So overall growth vertical is divided into multiple charters. I lead the charter for Digital Center of Excellence. In my charter, I have primarily three responsibilities. One is managing all traffic and acquisition from paid and organic channels. We spend, I think, more than 20 million US dollar a year, maybe more than that. I cannot give you the exact number, but a significant amount of money in terms of our marketing, primarily on the digital channels. Apart from that, I am also responsible for integration of new digital channels and MarTech development. And last but not the least, one of my key charters is driving personalization. In Airtel, one of our key objective is in next 6 quarters, reach every customer at a one-to-one personalized level without being intrusive and respecting customer privacy and the prevalent laws that we have, which makes us very, very cautious in what we do. But we still don't think that this is something that is going to slow us down. And this would be a big opportunity area for us going forward.
Amazing. I think you already touched upon a little bit of the metrics, but what I really wanted to focus on and why I started with this was that today we'll just cover two O's. One is the outcomes, which is a little bit he touched upon, the massive scale that they have and the number of customers you have to reach and the personalization that you're trying to achieve. And then supporting that are the operations, right? Which is really where the world that we understand, the world that we are trying to support as well. So wanted to understand a little bit more about the scale of your operations, because when we were chatting last, you were telling about the number of campaigns or variety of those things. Would love to hear some more of the end outcomes and the scale at which you're operating, just so that the audience can then appreciate the operations that go into it.
So just to give a little bit of highlight on how our operations run and how big they are. So on an every given day, through different campaigns that we are running, we serve almost 60 million impression every day to our customers across multiple channels, starting from Google, Facebook, search, everything. Over and above that, if I just talk about number of campaigns, on an every given day, we are running around 5,000 campaigns every day on an average is running, catering to different set of customers, cohorts, sub-cohorts across different businesses. We have 4 major lines of businesses on the telco side. Then we have 3 apps, together almost 5,000 campaigns at any point of time running. On a daily basis, we deal on around 25,000 keywords in our search campaigns. And one of the major thing that we do, that on an every day, on an average, the team between our internal channels as well as external channels make around 250 changes. We have a large team, plus some automation systems through which around 250 changes done every day to ensure that everything is run smoothly. If any of you are a viewer of Formula One, so to some extent, one of another challenge that we have is basically, we are like a Formula One pit crew. So it's a very, very fast moving organization. Things are being done it is being done at a very, very large scale. And we have that 2.5 second to 3 second time, kind of the Formula One pit crew get to fix things and get it running so that it operates at an optimal level. So that is more or less is the kind of a scale and the speed that we operate on. A lot of people still think Airtel as a comparatively more, I'll say, old school organization. And I would say that has changed internally significantly. People who interact with us, our partners, the teams that we work with know that. And I am sure this will also give all of you a little bit of sense that what kind of speed and agility that we have when we run our operations.
Yeah, and in case my opinion counts, I don't think old school is bad necessarily. You got to this sort of scale by operating a certain way. So I think It's the right sort of combination between new age growth tactics, this sort of mentality. Also, you were talking about the kind of team that you've built by getting people both from within Airtel, outside Airtel. So I think that part is very crucial. I know we are still yet to touch upon personalization, but why we are focusing on some of this is to highlight to the audience that at this sort of scale, if you have to operate at so many levels, you have to have your operations sorted, including your team and things like that. Let's talk a little bit about the personalization angle. You said you want to get to one-on-one personalization, but until then, today you do personalization. One point that you had said that struck a chord with me, which was that any marketing, for the most part, and no offense to all of us marketers here, we are trying to interrupt somebody. Nobody is asked to see our content. Nobody is asked to see our ad or our video or any of that. We are interrupting somebody's daily life, right? And the hope is that when you interrupt, you say something useful and meaningful and relevant to me. That's really where personalization starts. It's not because it's a buzzword or any of that, right? So I think that was a great insight that you gave, which is that's the approach with which you start on personalization. So one, I would like to understand a little more concrete examples of what sort of segments you have that lead to so many personalization points for you. And then how do you use personalization, especially when it comes to visual content? Because that's an angle that most people here haven't thought about.
Okay. So I'll start with the first question, the approach to personalization that we have. Personalization for me being relevant to the customers, so that when we are, like you mentioned, interrupting somebody, he doesn't feel that interruption is completely pointless. He feels there is something for me in this as well. And from a business perspective, what we have seen, personalization is something that helps us to reduce our marketing cost, deliver higher business outcome using the same amount of inventory. And for each inventory you pay, so it basically drives better ROI, as simple as that. Now, in terms of the complexity of the personalization, Airtel has 4 lines of business: prepaid, postpaid, broadband, DTH. Let's talk about them. I'm not getting into app. That's a different ballgame altogether. So there are so many types of customer who are looking for these services. So for example, if I want to sell a prepaid SIM to somebody as on today, there are multiple different reasons people want to buy a new SIM. There is a set of customer, they are not satisfied with their current network or the current services. They want to come to a different set of services. There is a set of customer who just bought a new handset and now open to changing his network or open to switch to a comparatively more better network. There are people who are just coming into category, students who are most probably going into colleges and they are given a new handset and they need a new connection. So similarly, if you just go forward, there are at least 15 to 20 major cohorts that we have who are potential audiences which we need to reach out to when we are trying to sell a SIM card, as simple as that. However, the challenge is that now at our scale, all of these cohorts are very, very big. And when you try to target these particular cohorts, and unfortunately for us, an addition of 1,000 users or a 10,000 users, nobody cares about in Airtel. Until and unless you do talk about in lakhs and millions, nobody is interested in what you are doing. When you want to do that, and everybody know marketing funnel, if you want to get 1 million customer, you might need to get to at least 100 million customer. Only then you will get a 1 million subscribers or 1 million people buying your SIM card. So for each and every cohort, what happens is that the overall quality of that cohort goes down. So you need to create lookalikes, you need to get into more broader audience set. You cannot be very fine-tuned to it. Because if any of you have dabbled in any of the marketing systems, if you make a cohort very, very small, your cost simply goes up. It is not a solution for us. That is where I think automation and personalization comes. So what we do is basically we to define the broad cohorts. Once we are happy with these are the broad cohorts, and we test these broad cohorts at a very, very small scale and see how they are performing. And then when we try building lookalike of them, we want to use our internal data science team to build a broader audience of lookalike, or use Facebook or a Google tools that they have where you can simply upload and create lookalikes, all these things. We then try to map them back to our internal data as well as the data is available in the platforms, and break them into smaller sub cohorts at a localized level, sometimes going up to a pin code level for certain services. So for example, a very good example is broadband. Airtel broadband in Delhi, maybe it's everywhere, but if you go into certain cities, it is only one part of the market, one part of the city, other part it is not there. So you need to ensure you don't end up targeting people where I am not being present. So breaking this into very, very localized campaigns. And in every campaign, you break these major cohorts into their interest and affinity level. So let's say, if I talk about a student cohort, a student who is going into a college and maybe buying a new SIM, got a new phone, has multiple types of interest. There are some students who are interested in gaming. So there you might go and pitch him, this is a network where the latency is low, you can have gaming, best gaming experience here. There are students who are more worried about how would my connection quality be. You talk about this is one of the best networks that we have in your region. I simply cannot just say that it is the best network of the all region. If I know in this particular region, particular pin code, particular geography, I have an advantage, I will push it. I will say this is the best network in your region. I might not use the same communication somewhere else. Similarly, there are students who are looking for, can I get some free content with this? I need to watch some free TV, free live TV, or some other contents. So all these comes into play. So a student cohorts now get broken down into 5, 6, 10 sub cohorts, and then you break it down across region, geographies. If I add a complexity more, there can be regional cohorts also. So people who understand English, people who do not understand English. So a single prepaid acquisition campaigns ends up having, if I go line item wise and into communication, some 5,000 communication running within a single prepaid campaign in a single channel. And that is where we realize that it is impossible to manage at this scale without some kind of an automation and inciting system. If I have 5,000 creative running, how would I know what is working where? It is possible to ask our agency partners or our internal analytics team to give us some sense of what is working, not working, as long as it is finite. When you are becoming 5,000, 10,000 line items, it becomes very, very difficult. Every communication, every creative, you need to map back and understand which is working, what is not working, and then why it is working or not working. So that is where I believe we started our overall approach, changed our approach from a manual to an automation kind of a process. What we did is basically we tried multiple tools and we found Rocketium is one of the tools that we found helped us do some of this piece. We tried with creative analytics and creative automation. And now we are trying to integrate this across our channels so that I know if a creative is working on a particular set of audience, what are the components of that creative that is most likely to influencing this particular cohort of users to click more or completing the journey. So that's what I'll say the approach we have taken so far. And we hope this will help us to go to the next level.
It's incredible, man. I think a lot of huge numbers were dropped. But one thing I want to highlight to the audience is that not everybody will have to think about adding 100 million more people. But I think the principles are absolutely right. There is a deep understanding of who the customer is, saying it's not just a student and they do kuch students go. Students have gaming as an interest, maybe Formula One, whatever else, right? So I think that's really important. The other thing is around internal operations. So not everybody has to operate like a pit crew, but they will have so much work happening. Why do work which is mundane and repetitive, and what systems can do, right? So I think that focus on automation and using the best of breed technology, I think that's another good one. And then analytics, what he's saying is a very interesting point, which is that if you're looking only at a platform level analytics, you get the superficial stuff. At your scale, to get that out of 100 million, 1% conversion is 1 million. To get to that next level, you are looking at analytics that other people are not looking at. That I think is a very interesting point. So one thing I want to go a little bit deeper on is, now that you mentioned all of these different kinds of cohorts and their interests, so sub cohorts and things like that, do they see the same sort of message? Because last when we were talking, you're talking about how the communication is also adapted so that the visuals that they see are very different. So can you tell me what sort of a role do visuals play in that communication, in personalizing the communication to these cohorts?
See, visual is very, very important because if you talk about marketing channels, I think there are only few channels like Google search, which is at scale, and where you don't have the opportunity to play or show a lot of visual, show a video or a visual, audio visual or a visual kind of a communication. Everywhere else, it is the visual communication what matters. And everybody knows search is a channel where you are limited by the number of people searching for you. And 100 million people will not be searching for you at the same point of time for the same service. So you need to tap into their latent needs. And that is where audiovisual communication and visual communication comes into play. So in terms of the way we approach this, we have a master communication, which basically caters to the primary cohort, okay, what we called a master cohort. Then we try to blend in the messaging of that sub cohort. So and some bit of localization. So definitely not everybody will be seeing a same message. So a student who is in, let's say, in a metro and interested in gaming will see a message which talks about best gaming experiment in English, and most likely carry a visual of something which is more metro-centric, like a PUBG, where you need a slightly better network and you are comfortable, you have a slightly higher end phones. A student, for example, who is in, let's say, rural Maharashtra, most likely see a message in Marathi, and it will most likely talk about some other game, which is more casual gaming, where you don't need a lot of bandwidth or a high-end phone. So all these elements are built into when you create the communication. Now the challenge, I think, I touched upon a little bit about the analytics part. So one of the challenges is that when you ask your creative or the design teams that I need so many communications, they beyond a point don't know what worked, what don't work. And I think you already touched base upon the fact that at a platform level data, if you share with them, they just know this creative has worked in this particular cohort. They don't know anything beyond than that. So when you generate the next creative, what are the changes they need to do? Do they need to change the entire creative? Do they just need to change the text in the creative or the background image or the position of the CTA? That becomes very, very important. And we believe that is something that enable our design teams to do things while understand the implication of what is doing at scale by providing with good analytics. So we were looking for any kind of a solution where we will be able to understand that if a particular creative works, if a PUBG creative, let's say, in English with a image of a mobile phone with PUBG shown, working better than a PUBG creative with an image of somebody playing PUBG on mobile, then is this the factor that is determining the performance of that creative? That is where the creative analytics plays a role. Because when you run things at very, very big scale, it is impossible to come up with a completely new creative ideas every day. You have the same audience target, while the sub cohorts might change, the master cohorts don't change. The requirements of people don't change so often. But we need to ensure that there is no fatigue in terms of creative. We are serving the most personalized message possible. Again, highlighting the fact without being intrusive or not following the privacy rules. But it is important that you communicate to this person what he wants to see, and making our internal design teams understand that this is something is working, so they need to focus on experimenting on those elements. A lot of things that we do is plain and simple experiments. We don't know what is happening. Now, if you go to your design team and say, okay, I want 200 creatives, I want to experiment and understand, they will just throw you out of the room. However, if I can go and say to them that, okay, I am enabling you through a particular platform where you can create the master format same and change different elements and generate multiple creatives. You use that and give me 200 creatives, and I will come back to you with a deep analytics of these 200 creatives, which element changing where at an aggregate level, at an individual level, by platform, by cohort, by sub cohort is working. So that next time you want to think about a new creative idea, you have very, very clear directions that you need to do, you need to follow in terms of generating the next big creative that will deliver us. So that's where the creative automation and the workflow as well as analytics is basically is playing a hugely critical role at our end. And I believe as this is an area of interest to us, we will continue to invest more, both internally in terms of our internal channels or through our partners who enables this particular type of solutions and enable us in terms of doing this at scale.
Amazing. I think it's a testament that even at your level of scale and the sort of team that you have, at your level of seniority, you are thinking about the design aspect, because it's not that because I'm looking at analytics or metrics or CAC and those numbers, I'm divorcing myself from what a real end user sees. So just like you want to understand customer needs, you also want to understand how they respond to your messaging, right? So I think that's a very important thing to bridge that art and science gap, which I think you've beautifully done there.